Cucumbers with Anxiety. Chapter 5. It's time for a wedding! My front door slowly swung open to reveal Alex and his stupid grin. Why are you screaming at my house? Why not just ring the doorbell? Can you just act like a normal person for one measly day in your inconsequential life? You don't know how much you're asking, Alex replied sternly. You're accompanying me to an event where my family is going to be. People are going to witness me willingly associating with you. Can you please act normal, just for a few hours? I really don't think that's in the cards for us, Alex said without considering it. Alright, let's find some middle ground. Can you try to pretend like you don't belong in a room with padded walls? I begged. At least Alex seemed to ponder this time. He even stroked his chin. I can definitely try, he counter-offered. I'm being serious, Alex. My whole family is going to be there. My mom is going to be there. Oh my god. My mom is going to be there. It suddenly dawned on me. Well, yeah, moms are usually considered to be family. No, you moron. I lied to her about seeing you again. She's going to explode when she sees us together. Well, don't worry about it. I'll just tell her the truth. We're not together in any capacity. You'll tell her that? I was surprised Alex was openly offering to reduce social tension for me, when he usually feeds off of it like a social vampire. Yes, I'll tell her that despite your numerous attempts at seduction involving increasingly revealing and lacy undergarments, I staunchly refused, as I am not currently interested in a relationship which, as you put it, has absolutely no room for clothes or conversation. I had to stare at him for quite a number of seconds, imagining all the violent things I would take too much pleasure in doing to him. You know what? I think I'm going alone after all, I replied, and started walking towards my garage. Alex chuckled. No, wait. I'm just kidding. I'll behave to the best of my ability. I promise. If you utter any of the words in that sentence within earshot of my mother, I will snap your neck over my knee. Threat duly noted. Appropriately terrified, Alex reported. Good, I decided, and continued heading for my garage. My car is that way, Alex said and pointed to the blue sadness standing on the side of the road. We're not taking your car. We're taking my car. I'm not going to be seen arriving at a wedding in a little go-kart. You don't want other people to feel intimidated by blue lightning over there. I understand. Also, I'm putting off dying until at least next week, I said and opened my garage door, revealing my little white bug with pink decals on the doors. Her protruding headlights made her look more like an insect than a car, but I love my little bug. Alex rushed to the passenger door and strapped himself in. Excuse me, do you have any more seatbelts? He asked as I got in the driver's seat. You have absolutely no ground to make jokes like that. Have you had your cholesterol checked recently? No. Why? Because you don't need to worry about your cholesterol with the way you drive. Alex smirked, then broke into a giggle. Been working on that one for a while, haven't you? No, I lied. It was quite a drive, but Alex was being surprisingly bearable. He sat quietly and stared out the window, his wandering eyes doing what they do, grazing over mountain ranges and city landscapes. Mostly he stared at other cars, or to be more accurate, the people in them, or to be more accurate, the women in them, or to be more accurate, the attractive women in them. For some reason he felt the need to let me know when a pretty woman in a car was driving by. It was akin to taking a dog for a drive and having him bark at all the other dogs in the other cars. I finally pulled off a dirt road into a wide open field. On the one side of the field stood an array of cars that was soon expanded by a tiny bug. The other side of the field had a small chapel standing on a precipice, which I could not see beyond. The unseasonably green grass was given a solemn tone by the grey overcast. Alex got out of the car and started drawing with his feet in the morning dew that still clung to the grass. He suddenly stopped and took a large jump away from his creation, He landed with both feet together, like a moron, and promptly fell over. "You idiot," I said and helped him up. "You'll ruin your clothes. You actually look nice for once," I said while brushing some dirt off his shirt. "Aw, you think I'm handsome," he said and tried hugging me, but I pushed him away. "I meant your clothes look nice." I wasn't lying. His outfit wasn't very creative. Men's clothes never are. A black tie paired with a white button shirt with the sleeves rolled up to his elbows, tucked into a pitch black trousers with shiny leather shoes. I sincerely don't think he shined his shoes. I rather think he's never worn them before. But now you have grass and dew all over you. "It was worth preserving my masterpiece," he whispered. I finally turned my gaze towards his disturbance in the dew. An A. He almost ruined his clothes to trace an A on the ground. "A for asshole?" I asked. "No. A for Alex." "Being so smart, I think you could have worked that out," he stated derisively as he started walking toward the gathered guests around the chapel. "I worked it out, moron. I was being... Never mind." I was rather annoyed by him sullying his clothes, but I couldn't work out why. I guess it's because he's accompanying me and I would rather be associated with someone who looks his best. And his best he did look. The white button shirt wasn't anything special, but it tightly wrapped around the contours of his body, bringing out the sharp lines on his chest and shoulders. The white and black of his shirt and tie somehow brought out the dark hazel surrounding the piercing green in his eyes, giving his gaze a sensation like you're being drawn into an alluring forest. I could easily imagine myself staring into... Oh shit. I firmly cut off my trail of thought as we approached the gathering of people. Alex stepped forward and my insides froze. "Hi!" he greeted with an eager smile and stuck out his hand. His greeting was echoed with a chorus of hellos and a returned handshake. I don't know these people. They must be from the other side of the family. I was definitely planning on ignoring them to the highest degree possible, and Alex just walked up to them. Hell, I would prefer ignoring my own family if that was an option. I all but physically dragged Alex away from the strangers and steered him toward more familiar yet equally unsafe territory. Alex took the opportunity to look around. Not a bad-looking place for a funeral. As we drew nearer to the chapel, I could finally see over the precipice. And it was indeed a sight to die for. A vineyard stretched out into the distance, seemingly terminated and succeeded by grey mountains on the horizon. A glance through the large wooden double doors of the chapel told me that the opposite side had no wall, only a large window in its stead, giving the inhabitants a clear view of the ever-stretching vineyard. The walkway into the chapel was a white carpet flanked on both sides by candles that somehow burnt undisturbed. The carpet was outlined by purple, yes, purple flowers from outside all the way to the altar. An uncomfortable angst built inside me at the sight. "It's not a funeral, Alex. Nobody died." "The love did," he muttered back. "Are we still on this? You're not anti-wedding. You've even planned your own wedding." "Exactly my point. I planned it to be the exact opposite of this. At my wedding, we'll know what's really important." "Hi!" He suddenly walked up to another group of strangers and greeted. This time, I was dragging him away before the group of unknowns could respond. "Stop doing that!" I growled. "Stop doing what? Stop talking to people?" "Don't speak unless you're spoken to. It's called respect." "In the army, perhaps. Otherwise, it's just being antisocial." "Well, that works too," I replied, then grinded to a halt as I immediately walked into the only person I could not ignore. My mother's eyes were as big as her smile, which stretched wider than the horizon. "Hello, Alex," was all she said, while her eyes were still trained on me, staring accusingly. "Hello, ma'am. Good seeing you." "Oh, it's good seeing you too," she replied, finally acknowledging his here by turning her gaze towards him. "Haven't seen you in nearly 10 years, she asserted. "Yeah, it's been quite a while," he chuckled. Horrible liars, the both of them. "What brings you here?" my mother asked. "Well," Your daughter called me up, Alex lied. No, I didn't, I interjected. And said she desperately needs a date, Alex fibbed. I would never say that, I added. And that she doesn't know anyone more handsome than me, Alex fabricated. Nobody would ever say that, I inserted. And that she would rather die than come to the wedding without me, Alex concocted. I just shook my head. Nope. I rounded off his diarrhea of deception. My mother was laughing all the way through, beaming proudly at our jabbering. Well, whatever reason, I'm glad you're here. Both of you, she whispered. She took my hand and squeezed it, along with a reassuring smile, then walked away. Oh God. She walked away to give us space. The only thing worse than my mother hounding us all day would be my mother purposefully avoiding us to allow for something to bloom. Little does she know that nothing blooms in winter. The next hour or so went by in a blur. A slow, drawn-out, endlessly boring blur. I was surrounded by family members, even if they weren't all that familiar. Exclamations of, "It's good to see you," abound, along with unrequited smiles and kisses on the cheek. Were they really happy to see me? Or were they just as jaded as me and better at hiding it? The conversation all followed some script that I was never given. It always started along the lines of, "What are you doing these days?" The answer to which was always, "Nothing really," which they couldn't really handle and tried to move on as quickly as possible. It was sometimes followed up by, "Someone special in your life?" before they realized how insensitive that question really is. Some at least had the decency to catch themselves mid-sentence and instead veer towards more neutral territory. Somehow the conversations always ended up at the same place. An update of their close family members, what they're doing these days, and if they have someone special in their lives. I feel like family gatherings are really just opportunities to update one's local databases of where family members are in life and gossiping about who's getting married next. I've noticed it's quite common to say, "So terrible to hear what happened." I'm not paraphrasing. I'm quoting. Isn't that an odd way to put it? It's terrible to hear. Do they mean that they would have preferred to not hear about it at all? I hope so. That would be an honest thing to say. It would be truthful to say, "I heard what happened and it made me sad. However, it does not affect my life in any direct way, so I'd rather have nobody tell me about it and save me the grief." Unfortunately, I know that's not what they meant. They were only expressing sympathy, which is worse. I don't care how you feel about what happened to me. It happened to me, not you. You're just bringing it up, forcing me to live through it once more, and for what? To make sure I know that you have the capacity for sympathy? To make yourself feel a bit better by fulfilling the social requirement of letting the person know that you are cognizant of their sorrow? Is this supposed to help? Does this help other people? Am I the only one? I suddenly felt incredibly isolated. I found myself trapped with family on all sides and felt so disconnected from them. Their conversations and laughter flew over my head and I just mimicked the facial expressions I saw around me, like social camouflage. I felt so acutely aware of everyone around me having their own lives and experiences that are so separate from mine that we may never truly know each other. I felt like everyone around me was dancing with copious amounts of Xanax in their systems, while I was the only one who couldn't hear the music. I felt like a deep abyss formed above my head, and nobody noticed. I felt like I was being sucked into it. "Chocolate," came Alex's voice next to me. "What?" "They have chocolate," Alex said in between bites of a dark confection. "Like, I don't know exactly what it is, but I like it, and I want 100 of them." I gave it a quick survey. Looks like a chocolate cake base with some chocolate mousse and chocolate sauce topped off with some pecan nuts. Alex's eyes rolled up into his skull and he looked like he was about to topple over. "Everything you just said is harder than your entire bookshelf put together." I couldn't help but snort. "Death by chocolate indeed," he said as he took another bite. I glanced around to find that everybody else was snacking on mini quiches and chicken finger food. Alex, where did you get that? I prodded. He pointed behind him. Over there, at the buffet. They were trying to hide it from me, he whispered. What do you mean they were trying to hide it? It was under the table, Alex admitted. You idiot. That was dessert. They're going to put that out after the ceremony. Oh, Alex said after he swallowed. Well, why didn't you bring me one? I did, he said and then swallowed his last piece. But I ate it, he said without a hint of regret. I'll go get us some more. He wound himself up before he spun on his heel. He ducked behind people and kept his gaze facing away from where he was headed. He reached the buffet and pretended to inspect the selection intently, visibly inconspicuous. When he, incorrectly, thought that nobody was watching him, he quickly grabbed 2 pieces of dessert from under the table. He tried concealing them as he was walking back toward me, but his face made it seem like he just got away with a bank robbery, and everyone stared at this man beaming brightly while carefully cupping something in his hands. Ladies and gentlemen, if we could all move into the chapel, please. The ceremony will start in half an hour. Some person I didn't recognize announced, and the few people staring at Alex distrustfully were thankfully distracted, and I could wolf down my sinful treat in peace. A mass of people squeezed through the small double doors. I found a place to sit near the back and next to the wall. Not much has changed since school, it seems. Conversation buzzed all around, and it became the backdrop noise to my internal crisis. I don't want to be in a chapel. I don't want to be anywhere near a wedding. This is DEFCON 0 for me, and I am sitting in the belly of the beast. Alex gave me a few reassuring glances, but apparently decided it was best not to bother me. Wise choice. The ceremony started unceremoniously. The music started and everybody around me promptly got to their feet. Would it be considered rude if I kept sitting? It would. I got up. I bet you she's going to be wearing a white dress, Alex whispered to me. I just rolled my eyes. My cousin finally walked into the chapel wearing a white dress. Told you, Alex whispered again. I elbowed him in the ribs and the piano masked his short yelp of pain. Some dutifully gasped at how radiant she was looking. Her eyes glanced about, soaking in the silent praise. Her victim, husband, stood at the far side of the chapel, eyes glued to her. She was looking at everyone looking at her. I hate when I have to admit that Alex isn't completely and utterly absolutely wrong. Dearly beloved, and people I've never met, Alex added while the priest paused to allow everyone to sit down. Shut up, I snarled. What? He's never met me. And you know what? If he gets to know me, I'm pretty sure he wouldn't love me. I find that extremely easy to believe, I whispered back as softly as I could. Someone from the row in front of me spun around to give me a dirty look. Alex was the one talking, why look at me? Not much has changed since school, it seems. The priest went into a preach, predictably, about the value of love and the sanctity of marriage, ironically. I made it about 5 words into his speech before my mind started wandering. My eyes did a fair amount of wandering themselves. There were a few attractive men around. I don't know if I'm just a sucker for a man in a suit with rolled up sleeves, or the desperation hormones oozing from the unmarried bridesmaids are getting to me, but I found myself quite entranced. I genuinely hope that none of them come to talk to me later. It would be so much worse turning down someone attractive. It's rather like when someone offers you a delicious ice cream brownie dessert after you've had a massive meal and couldn't eat another bite. You feel horrible turning it down because you would have devoured it if you could. If, instead, someone offered you a piece of rock-hard, moldy bread, you'd spare no anguish, because you would have turned it down anyway. Can we explain all relationship problems with analogies to food from now on? The priest segued into vows. The pair turned to each other and took out some notes. They recited beautiful words and quoted poems I don't believe they fully understood. I think one of the poems was about depression and the poet's longing for the sweet embrace of death. The priest announced that they are allowed to kiss. The groom lifted the veil off her face, the symbolism of which is completely lost now. And they kissed. My God, they kissed. Someone above must have owed them a favor because the clouds chose that moment to break open just above the grey mountains. The sun that was lurking beyond spilled over and flooded the vineyard. The light rushed over the fields and illuminated the world in fantastical color. The moment their lips touched, the light reached the chapel and burst through the window. The dim chapel was suddenly blazing all around. The illuminated window cast their bodies in shadow and instead outlined them with a golden aura. All we could see was a silhouette of a man and a woman standing in embrace and kiss. They signed the pact. They joined their lives together, and heaven poured out its blessing upon them, joined them as one being, as one entity. Brilliant, shining golden light was radiating off a unified couple, and in that moment, they became as one. Too bad this was her third marriage and that kiss didn't mean shit. Regardless, that kiss got to me. I felt a lump in my throat and the ghost of a kiss on my lips. I felt my mind wander to landscapes I forbade it to enter long ago. Quick, say something stupid, I whispered to Alex in a desperate attempt just before I couldn't keep my voice steady. Tears started welling up and a nervous panic rose within my chest. Alex didn't miss a beat though. A group of squid should be called a squad, he replied instantly. I paused. What? A group of squid should be called a squad, he said again. It makes sense, doesn't it? If you see a group of squid, you could say, hey look, a squad. What is a group of squid called anyway? I don't know what a group of squid is called, you moron. I don't even know if there's a word for it. Well, why wouldn't there be a word for it? Because how often do you see a group of squid? I'm guessing not enough to need a dedicated word for the event. I muttered and Alex seemed to consider it. Okay, yeah, fair point. But if I ever see a group of squid, I will remember this day. When that day comes, just know that wherever I may be, I don't care. Anyway, let's go, I said and fell into the flow of people toward the door while the couple was signing papers. They handed out confetti and Alex took more than his share. I could see this going sideways from miles away. When the newlyweds exited the chapel, people were throwing confetti in the air. Alex was throwing confetti straight at the couple. He got a couple of sideways glances from the couple and bystanders alike, but he was not deterred. I just knew his demented thought process went something along the lines of, I won't ever see these people again, why should I care? The couple somehow survived though, and we were off to the reception. The crowd flowed like a school of fish to the reception hall about a 5-minute walk away. When we entered, I was overwhelmingly underwhelmed. A bunch of round tables strewn about a large hall, with a singular rectangular table in the middle, designated for the pair and their closest kin. The tablecloths, seat covers, and table decorations matched the drapes and overhanging ribbons in alternating gold and white colors. At the entrance stood a large diagram showing everyone's seating assignments. I searched for my name and did not dare look at the name next to it. I put my arms on the table and rested my head on them. This wedding was already dragging too long for my taste. Alex, on the other hand, seemed more excited than ever. Finally, we can get to the real purpose of a wedding, he said while rubbing his hands together. The purpose of a wedding is for a couple to wed. It already happened, I muttered into the table. Maybe we can go home now and nobody will notice. Everyone would notice, and it would be a horrible thing to do. I think I can live with that, I said after considering the social implications and realizing that I don't care about the social implications. Well, you don't have to. We're not leaving. Perhaps I could just fall asleep here, and nobody would bother me, and the wedding would be over sooner, I thought out loud. I envy the narcoleptic. You're right, Alex. The purpose of a wedding is to get it over with as soon as possible. Wrong. The real purpose of a wedding is to chat up bridesmaids. The stupidity of Alex's comment was enough to make me raise my head off the table. You're absolutely right, Alex. In fact, I'm sure that was what the couple planned. They had a conversation about a year ago along the lines of, this guy Alex that we've never met can really get with one of the single female members of our collective family and friends pool. We should get married for the sole purpose of facilitating this. Wow, I'm glad you think so too. For a second there I was worried I was the only one. Alex replied. I hate you so much. I spat and returned my forehead to the nook in my arm. The bane of any terminally sarcastic person is someone taking their words at face value. Alex, of course, knows this and wields it as a weapon. I lifted my head and did a quick scan for someone. There's a lovely woman for you, I said and pointed to someone at the buffet. She's from my side of the family. Knew her since I was a child. We used to bake cookies together. She's really sweet. Alex's face lit up, then immediately melted into disappointment. I'm not dating your grandmother, Scarlett. Why not? My grandfather died recently, so I'm sure she's trying to get back in the saddle, I replied. Holy! Even for you, that's dark. My soul is as black as the night, I growled before returning my head to the table. Well, the darker the night, the more beautiful the stars, Alex promptly replied. I found it quite beautiful, even though I'm sure it doesn't really mean anything. In reality, I just scoffed. What about her? Alex said. I gazed toward where he was pointing. A blonde girl in a light blue dress was smiling to herself, stars in her eyes, as she looked around the decorated reception hall. Don't know her. Must be from the others, I replied. She seems nice, Alex whispered more to himself than me. Yeah, Alex shot up and walked towards her. Guess, I whispered to myself, like a weirdo. For the lack of alternate entertainment, there was no TV in here and I wish there was, I watched Alex trying to chat up this girl. She received him with a smile. For a minute they talked and she seemed genuine and inviting. She excitedly gestured to everything around her, and Alex politely nodded along. After a while he seemed to excuse himself and headed back to me. Damn, so close, he muttered and took a sip of wine. He immediately spit the wine back. Man, I hate wine. What was wrong with her? I asked, strangely relieved that things didn't go better. She wants to get married someday, he whispered back without looking at me. Dear mother of seahorses, we cannot seriously still be on this. Alex, you want to get married someday. It would be counterproductive to find a girl who doesn't want to get married. What are you not understanding about this? Should I use smaller words? Should I go fetch some crayons? I'm seriously asking, I said, leaning forward and explaining like a special education teacher. I understand and I know, he whispered in reply, still not looking at me. I want to find a girl that wants to marry me. I don't want to find a girl that wants to get married. I stared at Alex for a few seconds. All right, I'm going to fetch the crayons. That girl, beautiful and sparkling as she is, wants to get married for all the wrong reasons. I listened to her talk for 5 minutes about the wedding and how she wants her wedding to be one day, how she wants it to be decorated, how her dress is going to look, what flowers she's going to have. She laughed at how the bride ordered around all the bridesmaids today, how this was her day, how incredibly beautifully she looked, how all the attention was on her. She couldn't wait for her own wedding, to order all the bridesmaids around, to be the most beautiful woman in the room, to have all the attention on her. She talked about how she was going to walk down the aisle and everybody's going to gasp at how beautiful she looked. She talked about every aspect of her imagined wedding, besides one. She didn't mention one single thing about the man she's supposed to marry. It almost didn't occur to her to mention him. Not one word about how he's going to fit in her life, how he's going to compliment her, and how she's going to compliment him. Not one fantasy about how he's going to be on the other side of the aisle waiting for her. It sounded as if it wasn't important to her. She just needs a groom-sized cardboard cutout to place at the front of the chapel so that she has everything she needs to get married, Alex explained and almost took a sip of his wine. People are shallow and like attention. In other news, water, wet. Me, sarcastic. Alex, idiot. I said, but Alex just continued to stare at nothing. In a brief moment of clarity, I saw Alex for what he was, and it wrenched my heart. I put my hand on his shoulder for a second. I meant what I said. My wedding will be the opposite of all this, he said and vaguely gestured to everything around us. He lit up and sat on his crossed legs as he spoke. We won't spend 9 hours getting ready. She won't have a specialist flown in from Spain to do her makeup and hair. No stupidly expensive wedding dress made from the tears of Taiwanese children. We're going to get married in jeans and t-shirts. Probably made by Taiwanese children, but still. Our wedding won't be about making us look the best we've ever looked to take a few photos. It will be a celebration of the two of us coming together. Our wedding will be about making our guests happy and making sure they have a good time. All this for one simple reason. Our wedding day won't be the happiest day of our lives. If it is, then we would have made a terrible mistake. Your wedding day shouldn't be the happiest day of your life. Every day after should be. Oh God, I really hope Alex stops saying adorable things. Well, that at least sounds better than the last plan you had. I'd actually attend this wedding, seeing as how you'd be focusing on me having a good time. Too bad you'll never find a girl that'll agree to that. So, I guess you'll just have to have a boring and predictable wedding after all. So, what? I'm just supposed to settle for some girl that's good enough but not really perfect for me? Well, basically, I replied. Alex seemed to think for a bit, then shook his head. I don't think I can do that. I don't think I can live like that. With a girl that is probably a great girl, but always knowing that somewhere out there could be a girl that is more like me, that I could really be myself with, that accepts me for who I am. Isn't that what's really important? That is what we tell kids before they grow up and learn the truth. So, seeing that you are a kid that hasn't grown up and learned the truth, yes, you'll find someone that you can be yourself with and that would accept all the weirdest parts of you without running away. Totally, I said, and Alex smirked. Don't condescend just because you've lost the faith. Until I find the perfect girl, I'd rather be alone. Oh, because you're so perfect? Of course I'm not perfect. I have like 2 flaws, Alex said. Only 2? I snorted. Yep. But to her, they won't be flaws at all. She'll have flaws too, but I'd love them along with her. Her weaknesses will be my strengths, her strengths my weaknesses. We'd interlace and complement each other to be better together than we'd ever be apart. When I say I want the perfect girl, I don't mean a girl without flaws. I mean a girl whose flaws perfectly intersect with mine and negate them, Alex said, and I had to consider it for a few seconds. Maybe that's her, he said suddenly and shot out of his chair. Yeah, good luck with that, I said when I thought Alex was out of earshot. Instead, he spun around and regarded me suspiciously. Why would you say that? He inquired. I didn't say anything. Do you know something? Nope, I said and shook my head. But I could barely keep my sinister grin contained. He walked over to a girl in a black dress with dark hair that flowed over bronze skin. She was incredibly beautiful. I had to admire Alex's ability to walk up to complete strangers and strike up a conversation with ease. She smiled at him and entertained him out of kindness. After a few minutes of what seemed like polite conversation, she said something that dropped like a ton of bricks on Alex. He excused himself and walked back to me. Damn, he said as he sat down. Didn't go according to plan? I inquired. We have different interests, he replied. Or let's rather say that we have one very common interest. Dreadful, was my only reply. Alex paused and looked at me. Do you know her? He prodded. I couldn't keep my smile contained any longer. No, but she's been checking me out all day. My smile manifested maliciously. Well then, perhaps you should go chat her up. I laughed sarcastically. Going to need a whole lot more alcohol for that to happen. Alex shut up. I'll go fetch us a couple bottles then, shall I? He said excitedly. Sit down, moron. Alex obeyed. Good to know that he responds to the word moron. Self-awareness is key. You haven't touched your wine, he said after doubtlessly trying to estimate my current intoxication level. I hate wine. Me too. Beer? Beer. Alex got up and headed toward the bar. Some guy obviously had the same opinion as Alex about the purpose of weddings, as he seized this moment to come talk to me. Earlier I compared an attractive guy to an ice cream brownie dessert. Well, this guy was closer to orange juice after you've brushed your teeth, or dog breath flavored chips, or a glass of water with your grandmother's false teeth in it, or olives. I really hate olives. It wasn't that he was all that unattractive, he was just unbelievably slimy. I felt that if I hugged him, I would slide down his body and end up on the floor. The amount of gel currently in his hair could probably give poor children all around the world slightly better hair for a full year. Hi, he said and winked. My skin crawled. His slimy appearance is matched by a slimy personality. It always is. His voice sounded like he was opening an infomercial. Hello, I replied, trying to be nice. In my head I was smacking him. Not with my hand, of course. I'm afraid it would stick. But I know what I'm like. Regardless of the misdirected teachings of Alex, I know that my dark thoughts should be contained to where they come from. People, no matter how slimy, do not deserve the hellfire that is my inner monologue. My name is Jin. Hi there, Jin. Why did his parents name him Jin? What's wrong with John? I always get exceedingly irked by names that sound close to common names but are differently spelled. I just know that behind each of those names lurked parents with the thought process, well, we want our kid to have a unique name, but we lack the creativity required to come up with one. Then they instead give the kid a common name with an alternate spelling, like Isobel or Jackson or Ryan or Mia. Just give your kid the boring name and move on. So, what do you do? He asked after allowing a couple of seconds for me to offer my name, which I didn't. Nothing really, I replied and took a swig of my red wine. I had to suppress the urge to spit it back out. He waited for me to ask what he does. I did not. Well, I work as a sales representative. Basically, my job is turning a no into a yes, he explained, and I have never been bored so quickly. Wow, I replied as flatly as possible. He still took it as interest. Imagine you work for a company, right? I am a representative selling any product. I actually sell pens, but just imagine any product that your company uses all the time but does not need more of or any other brand of. Sort of like pens. So imagine your company usually uses pens from company A, and they're fine. They write when pushed to paper, so why do you need other pens? Now, I walk in working for another pen company. Let's say company B. Now I need to convince you that your company needs to switch to using my pens because you just won't turn a profit next quarter if you don't immediately... I tried. I really tried to listen to what he had to say. I pretended like it was the most interesting story that had ever been told. I imagined orchestral music swelling to a riveting tale of how one man took on the pen industry and came out the other side victorious. My attention buckled under the boredom, however. and his words soon congealed into a slimy mass that I could not decipher into anything remotely noteworthy. Over his shoulder I saw Alex skulking around in the background with 2 beers in his hands. The moron was actually giving me space so that Mr. Slimy could chat me up. I caught his eyes and stretched mine at him, mentally screaming red flags and emergency signals at him. He clicked instantaneously and headed over with haste. He placed the beers on the table with a loud thud and eyed the slime monster with scorn. "Hello there," he said monotonically, his shirt wrapped tight around his body, and I realized that he was flexing his muscles in some sort of carnal alpha male display. I swear he was 1 level away from actually beating his chest. Mr. Slimy slurped back in his chair. "Hi, my name is Mr. Slimy." Okay, he didn't actually say that, but that's what I heard. He stuck out his hand toward Alex, who took it and squeezed as hard as he could. I heard the squelch mentally, and I realized that I should probably get out of my own head a bit. Slime Guy winced slightly at the pressure, but shook it off. "You two having a nice conversation?" Alex said deadpan, keeping his unwavering fiery gaze on the slime monster, who was melting, as if salted, under the stare. "Yes, I suppose," he finally replied, and then his eyes darted between me and Alex. "I'm sorry, is she your girlfriend?" "No," Alex replied sternly. Slimester relaxed instantly. "Oh, well, that's good to... We're engaged," Alex interrupted, and I barely kept my shocked laughter contained at this new piece of information. Slime Creature froze for a full second, then glanced towards my very exposed, very bare ring finger. "She's not wearing a ring," he pleaded. Alex looked like a contained explosion the way his tone of voice shifted toward furious snarling, but he did not raise his voice one bit. "Because we don't want people to know yet. It's their wedding. This is their day. We didn't want to siphon attention away from them on their day. How selfish would we be to do that? We wouldn't want to be unpleasant, would we?" Alex rained hellfire upon Slime Style with soft yet gritted words. Slime Person opened his mouth a few times to try and wrench out a response, but eventually shut up and left without so much as a word. Alex took the newly vacated seat and cracked open his beer with a satisfied sadistic smile lingering on his face. "Well, I guess I should thank you," I finally said. "You're very welcome. That was fun," he said. "Poor guy," I mused silently. Alex seemed confused. "What do you mean, poor guy?" "I'm just wondering if that could have been handled better. That's all." "I guess it could have. I could have made more of a scene and let everybody here think he was a massive creep." "No, you idiot. I mean the opposite of that. He was a pretty nice guy, though he probably walked away feeling horrible. Pain is the best lesson," Alex muttered before taking another sip of his beer. "Depends on the lesson. The only lesson he learned is that he shouldn't try, which is not the takeaway I was intending." Alex put his hands up in defense. "Look, you could have just told them politely that you're not interested. But no, you had to drag me into this," he said and eagerly returned to his beer. "If I had said that, he might have taken it the wrong way. I've been there. You spend weeks trying to figure out the real reason. It eats you up inside." "I didn't want to hurt his feelings," I explained, and Alex eyed me skeptically. "Where's all this coming from? You hate everyone. Why such concern for their feelings, Wendy?" he asked, and I had to think for a few seconds. "Just because I hate everyone doesn't mean that they deserve it," I answered. "I just wanted you to intervene and that he'd assume we're involved and that he'd leave with his dignity and psyche intact, and he doesn't become a mass murderer at some point and I don't have to wonder if I'm partly to blame." "So that's why you brought me here? To act as a social shield between you and everybody else?" No shit. Did you think I invited you for the conversation? Yes. Idiot. We sat quietly sipping our respective beers for a few minutes, just watching the people go about their social interactions. An announcement came that the couple has arrived. Everyone quietened in anticipation, and when they emerged through the large doors to the reception hall, a massive applause broke out. The bride seemed to swell from all the attention, soaking it all up like an egotistical sponge. I saw my mother hugging her sister, the bride's mother, both wet with tears. None of it really fazed me. I was somehow in a little world, and strangely, Alex was with me. We were the only ones already seated at our table, quietly sipping beer as the world went by. The silence wasn't due to a lull in conversation, or an awkward scramble for points of conversation. It was a comfortable quiet. I find that people you can just be silent with are the people you get along with the best. No expectation. No need to impress or drag the conversation along while it's sticking its heels in the sand and refusing to cooperate. Just being content with not having something to say, and so just remaining quiet. Thanks for the beer, though, I said after a while as some family members and some acquaintances took their seats at the table. I placed an empty beer bottle on the table as Alex did the same. You're not welcome for that. Cash bar, very expensive, he muttered as he instead took up his glass of red wine. My wedding will have a free bar. A free bar is like a buffet, but with better stories. He took a sip of his wine and immediately spit it back. And no wine! I hate wine. Beer? Beer, I nodded. I think if all our conversations could consist of only that one word, we'll get along just fine. The night came to the supposed fun part. The hour was late. The old people had gone home. The DJ sucked. And it was time to dance. A string of golden oldies will follow from here on out, and a mix of weariness and alcohol will bring out the worst dance moves the world has ever seen. For someone like me, who prefers to sit on the sidelines and judge people quietly, this should be most amusing. The lights were dimmed and people took to the dance floor by storm, Alex with them. He had his tie around his head, his shirt was halfway unbuttoned. He danced like nobody was watching, but everybody was, and he looked like an idiot. I was enjoying it, until he walked over to me. Come, let's dance, he said, his sweat-covered forehead reflecting the remaining blue lights in the hall. I don't dance. Ever, I said, sitting stiffly. Tonight, you dance, he said while reaching his hand toward me. I didn't take it. Ever, I clarified. He rolled his eyes and knelt down in front of me. Look, after we leave, you will have one good memory of tonight. This will not be a day that you merely survived. This will be a day where you actually did something you enjoyed. You are going to come to this dance floor with me. You are going to let loose a little, and you are going to enjoy it. Some part of you wants to. You're just scared, he said while he took my hand. He pulled me out of my seat and led me to Mordor. I can't dance. I look stupid, I muttered. I didn't expect Alex to hear me over the noise, but he spun on his heel instantaneously. Do you know what the biggest lie in the universe is? He prompted. No? We are sorry for your inconvenience. They never are. You can hear it in their tone of voice. But do you know what like the 173rd biggest lie is? Still no? That it matters how you look when you dance. It doesn't. You dance for yourself. You don't dance for anybody else. If you're enjoying yourself while you're dancing, you're doing it right. If anybody else is looking at you while they're dancing, they're doing it wrong. Very inspirational. I don't feel better. Well, come anyway. He turned around and dragged me along. There was hardly any room left on the dance floor, due to my mother's smile spreading the length of it when she saw us joining the circle of dancing family members. She committed to keeping her distance, though. Alex immediately commanded the center of the circle, not shying away from the attention that comes with it. He attempted a dozen complicated dance moves while pulling a face that made it seem like he was mentally solving triple integrals. I was content with awkwardly shifting a position like any other self-respecting adult. I told myself that I would be more into it if I knew the song better. The song ended and the hall grew momentarily quiet. Everybody laughed, partly out of exhaustion and partly at Alex. He either did not notice or did not care. He was walking back toward me when the music started up again with a thunderous guitar riff and drum crash. Alex's eyes stretched wide as he pointed both of his hands toward me. The song is called Black or White, a song which I, unfortunately, know very well. Even more unfortunately, Alex knows that I know the song very well. He took both my hands and pulled me into the center of the circle. A couple of excited cries came from some members of my family. I didn't have to look to know that the loudest came from my mother. Alex broke into some of his most convincing Michael Jackson dance moves, including a moonwalk. He spun on his heel and pointed toward me when the lyrics began. He sang the first line of the lyrics as loud as he could, even though I could barely hear him. He leaned forward expectantly as the second line of lyrics passed me by. He rolled his eyes and sang the next line. When he finished it, he gestured towards me and I reluctantly muttered the following line. Alex was not deterred and sang the next line. I sang the following line back. He did it again. I did it again. He yelled a line. I screamed one back. He did a little dance move. I did one back. His face lit up with pure joy as I forgot myself. My body moved with the rhythm. I was singing and moving all over the floor when I suddenly remembered what comes next. Halfway through the song lies a rap part. A person I used to be in high school enjoyed rapping along to this very song. Nobody would know that fact better than Alex himself. Alex did a power slide on his knees and yelled, "Take it away, Juliet!" just as it started, and I fell into it with ease. I was fully committed now, and there was no turning back. The words poured out of me, loud, proud, and smooth. I waved my hands back and forth as I enunciated each word. Alex jumped up and down and cheered as the part ended. He started dancing again, and so did I. I forgot that there were other people there. I forgot that other people existed. All that existed in the universe was me and the music. My body fell into the rhythm and I moved with the song with more fervor than I ever had. I even attempted some Michael Jackson moves. They did not work. The song finished and I remained standing, woefully out of breath. I need to exercise more. Or at all. Alex was on the floor, equally out of breath, but with a distinct smile on his face. In the span of a couple of seconds, I realized exactly 3 things in order. First, I noticed that a few people applauded, me and Alex. My mother obviously counted among these. The second thing I noticed was that the people who weren't applauding us, which was the vast majority of people, weren't even looking at us or paying us any attention in any way. People really didn't care what I looked like when I danced. Most of the people didn't so much as notice me. Those who did, didn't care. And the third and final thing I realized was that I was smiling. This is important. I had to realize that I was smiling. This could only mean that I didn't decide to smile. It just happened naturally, the way God intended. It's been quite a while since I haven't had to force a smile or draw it on consciously. Smiling has become such an automatic precursor to social interaction with someone who wouldn't understand my dread that I forgot what it's actually supposed to mean. I forgot where smiles come from, where they're supposed to come from. The smile came from within, came from some joyful place within me, and displayed itself on my face while my mind was distracted. I smiled. For the first time in a long time, I actually, genuinely, truly smiled. The lights from my bug gently grazed the grey asphalt and continued into the endless void. The constant rumble of tires brushing against the long road home was the radio's capable substitute. I peered over my one hand on the steering wheel with a persistent soft tug at the corners of my lips. I fell into a rarely visited space of calm and peace. Alex was curled up on the seat next to me, his chest rising and falling with accompanying snoring. I considered his offer to drive the road back, but he was too drunk. I now realize how thankful I am for taking up the mantle instead, lest I rob myself of this moment of serenity. I thought it funny that I was dead sober even though we had the same amount of alcohol. If I was still in high school, I would call him a certain name that starts with an owl and rhymes with smite-weight. But I won't do that now, because I am an adult that doesn't resort to boasting about how well I can handle my drink. Unlike this little lightweight. End of chapter 5. Hope you enjoyed.